listeners and viewers of the NDC Heartbeat podcast. We're happy to welcome all those who are listening on radio via WeFM. We've got Vibes FM, we've got Spice Capital Radio, we've got 100.5 FM out of Labby in Grenville, right along out of Brooklyn, New York. Of course, we have the NDC Facebook online platform and YouTube. So, welcome to another Heartbeat episode for another beautiful Sunday afternoon in Grenada. Hope most of you all are following on. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be chatting extensively with the Honorable Ron Redhead. He's the PRO of the National Democratic Congress. He's also the parliamentary representative for St. George Northeast. And he's right here in studio once again. We'll be delving into political matters today. So it will be very interesting. So stay with us. Back with you in a moment.
Grenada is moving forward, and the young people like you are at the heart of it. The National Democratic Youth Movement is all about connecting, learning, and making real impact. This is your chance to be a part of something bigger, to grow, to lead, and shape the future while making a difference. If you are ready to step up, have your voice heard, and help build a better Grenada, then the National Democratic Youth Movement is the organization for you. Join us because you are the future.
You have chosen unity over disunity. You have chosen resilience, flexibility, inclusiveness and strength over infighting, weakness, vacillation, or wish-washiness. You have chosen boldness and courage over timidity and the same old, same old. You have chosen positive change and transformation. You have sent a clear and resounding message to the tri-island state of Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada that the National Democratic Congress is once more on the path of inspiring hope and belief in our people and in our nation. That the National Democratic Congress is once more on the path of beginning the process of creating a sustainable and brighter future for our young, vibrant, creative, and innovative population. You have recognized and honored and rewarded the tremendous contributions made by all of the NDC stalwarts. And for this superb choice, I say thank you.
Welcome back to another NDC Heartbeat episode for this Sunday afternoon in Grenada. In studio with me is the PRO of the National Democratic Congress and Parliamentary Representative for St. George Northeast, the Honorable Ron Redhead. Before we commence today's episode, I want to extend condolences to all those who may have lost loved ones, loved friends, family, etc. And Honorable Ron Redhead was just mentioning the passing of Michael Blaze Robertson, a well-known figure in the pan industry in Grenada. So we extend our condolences. And let me invite MP Redhead to make his own expressions.
Yes, thank you very much, Terry, and good evening to all of our listeners. Well, afternoon, sorry, to all of our listeners, wherever you are, both home and in the diaspora. Greetings to you. Now, we are very much saddened to hear the passing of Blaze. Blaze is a very important figure in the pan sector, as you have rightfully stated. And historically, his contributions certainly maybe even would outlive his time. And, losing such a soul at this important juncture is both shocking on one hand and also a testament to the uncertainties of life. And so to his family, we from the National Democratic Congress would like to extend our deepest condolences. I know Senator Claudette Joseph is deeply moved by this passing, and the entire party, the tongue of St. George NDC team, everyone is certainly shocked by his passing, and we extend our deepest condolences to his family and friends at this particular moment. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Thank you very much. And I just wish to add that someone whom I met just briefly a few months ago, her name is Sue. She is was a professor at SGU in literature, I believe. A non-Grenadian. She has, lived in Grenada for quite some time, has also passed recently, and her dear friend Jane Corrian is in deep mourning, along with close friends and relatives of hers. And to all those who may have suffered loss, we extend our deep condolence on behalf of the National Democratic Congress.
True.
So may we all live to see much better days ahead.
True.
Where there is no more pain, no more death, no more suffering. Will be a time of reckoning. Well, for today, we're going to be talking politics. So
yes.
Tell us what's happening. I know.
As you see, I have on my T-shirt.
Yes, very much so indeed. Very much so.
We are all
ready to delve into the politics.
Yes.
Well, I'm with my black T-shirt today in morning.
Yes. Recognizing
to all those who have lost, loved
Indeed.
ones and friends.
Indeed. Well, before I start off with some of the more political situation or situational topics, I just wish to update one and all, including delegates, supporters, members of the National Democratic Congress, that we have commenced the clearing of the land for the headquarters of the National Democratic Congress. Honorable Prime Minister and political leader Deacon Mitchell, he is keen to ensure that we do achieve this, and we are working steadfast to it. The entire team is behind this. The General Secretary, everyone is looking forward to the day when we can call the headquarters or home of the National Democratic Congress and turn it into something much more than just a headquarters, but also a resource center. We are pleased with the commencement of the clearance of the property. It's looking lovely. And we are confident that once this is completed, it is another milestone being achieved by the National Democratic Congress, again, in such a short space of time. We must give credit to the Honorable Prime Minister and his hard work and the team's dedication to achieving this, and so we thought it fitting to mention this on the very onset and to update the nation as to the progress that we are making. We also have, very briefly, another update to give, and hopefully in the coming weeks and months ahead, the public will be pleased as we put out information concerning candidacy, caretakership, that sort of thing, throughout the length and breadth of the nation. Terry, we need to talk about the politics in the country because there is the perception by some, whether real or imagined, that, things are happening and it's the worst it has ever been, etc. And we want to say no. That is not the case. And I want to start off by highlighting the very obvious with all of these innuendos, half-truths, all these sorts of things that are floating about there. My message to young and aspiring politicians is don't get yourself involved in that, no matter which side of the fence you're on. And I'll tell you why I say so. There are consequences to these things, and we could talk a little about the whole question of the Patrick Simmons, former Minister of Sports scenario, versus the former Prime Minister of Grenada. He has openly told a lie to the nation when he was campaigning in the build-up to the 2013 general election, in stating that the former minister then was involved in some questionable dealership with land and so on in exchange to UE and all these other things. And so He has not been able to prove that lie. Now, he may have been able to get some political mileage and traction with it, but it speaks to this pattern of deception. And in some instances, look at when justice is just being served. Now, there is a saying that it's long in some instances to get justice, but certainly justice will prevail. And this is a classic example as to why we need to remain focused and steadfast to the task at hand. It is clear in my mind, as public relations officer, that the National Democratic Congress administration is performing, and in some instances is outperforming its mandate when we got into office. We are not where we would like to be in every instance, and as you could well appreciate, Terry, there are limitations, maybe even due to time, human capacity, among other things, as to why we have not been able to achieve some of the things that we have set out to. But by and large, we are on the right track, and we are confident that Grenada is going in the right direction as we speak. The second thing I want to make mention of is the bill that is being bandied about out there as being something wrong and inhumane to our miners. Now, it worries me that every single time this administration takes legislation that was prepared by the former administration and seek to bring it into the public domain for a mature and honest discussion, that the very opposition today seeks to promote this thing and talking about whatever rights and world order that we trying to institute. When I was growing up in the villages and the communities and so on, I grew up in Hopevale, flying kite and fishing in the river and so on. And some of the fishermen would always say, fishermen always talk about fish. And it bothers me that every time we have a progressive legislation that deals with the protection of minors in this country, whether it is for their education or for their social upbringing, a particular group just seem to always get aroused, stand up and always trying to muddle and muddy the water for the vast majority of Grenadians. But I can tell you and reassure you that there is no sinister attempt by this administration to institutionalize or to pass any legislation that speaks to any of the concerns that the opposition is raising. All of that is just hot air. They have no clear, genuine attempt or interest in the miners. What they are doing, honestly, is just to openly try to use something to see how they could whip up their base, and probably a few undecided, to see how they could challenge the administration. This is not a genuine attempt at having any formal discussion. This legislation will not be across the board. It is situational, Terry, and it speaks to the instances where a minor do not have a voice or that backing from a parent that is seeking the best interests of the minor. It is not for the parents and minors who have good working relations and can be able to be involved in their lives, etc. That's not going to hinder that relationship there. So that's the first thing that I think we need to dispel. The second misconception that is going out there is about cost of living. Now, the leader of the opposition, the current one, whom was given the chance, we don't know if it's temporary, because you know it is in that party right now. Any moment, the Mamba might strike and take back what he believes he's so rightfully deserving of. So she made a statement which, sort of piqued my interest. And I did a little investigation and following up on it. Now, she said clearly that a young man came to her and that he couldn't pay his bill, something in the region of $200. Well, first of it being 40-something per month or whatever it is, so it built up over time. And she has to, she's calling on the administration essentially to make costs of living cheaper, and that they instituted these programs and this and that and so on after COVID and so on, which really amounted to nothing. Terry, I want to say to the nation that the non-fuel charge that the former administration reduced on Gren Lake almost caused Gren Lake, a once glorious performing company, to crash. And that is a fact. That was a political move which was just geared to see how they could try to lower the cost, but eventually didn't lower the cost because the non-fuel charge is not the fuel charge, which is dependent on external forces, and Grenlec more or less had a structure in dealing with that external cost. But the non-fuel charge significantly reduced the quality of Grenlec to be able to service generators, to be able to do things.
Yeah.
So this is why when we came into office, there were seemingly these moments of blackouts, repeated blackouts being done almost to, I would say, to lose electricity in certain communities, etc. And it was happening at a pace because the generators of Grenlec had not been upgraded or maintained for a pretty long time. It's costly. And now that Grenlec is under the government control as a statutory board, it's even more costly because whereas with a privately owned setup, you would have the cash, the investors would have the cash and the revenue to be able to do what it has to do. They couldn't do it in this instance because it's government, and then you have to think about healthcare, you have to think about the poor and vulnerable, you have to think about the unemployed, etc. And so you have to juggle more resources. But whereas with a business, you have the profits, you could be able to then invest. You could not have that. So this is why this fight with Bowen and Mitchell at the time, with WRB, has not benefited Grenada. It is similar with the fight that was ongoing with one of the investors down at Grand Dance for one of the properties, where in 1 minute, that was your best friend. And in the next minute, apparently the allegation is that you ain't get no campaign financing, you turn your enemy. And so we can't have these kinds of reckless behaviors going on in the country in the name of people's development, holding office, and then coming now to talk about coming back to rescue. So you ain't rescuing Grenadians from anything, just to put it very blunt and frank. So we need to be careful with the misinformation that is going on out there. And I would dare say that today, things are a lot better than they used to be. And I'll give you just one example in terms of how we have been able to cap the cost of public transportation in the country. There is now a rebate, right? The National Democratic Congress administration has been able to successfully launch the Transport Commission, right? This is dealing specific with the question of public transport throughout the length and breadth of the country. And this rebate is assisting busmen to be able to allow them not to, among other things, gas is one, petrol is one. I think they also get relief in terms of the bus itself, in terms of the taxes on it, and some other things. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it is accessible. You can access it online with ease. But that information is out there. And this was a direct policy by our administration to be able to reduce the cost of public transportation and in some instances cap it so that it does not exceed a particular amount. And this is good because it means it's predictable. The bus association is in this context and season given some significant attention and respect that it deserves. And so we are engaging them in a professional manner to see how we can work together collectively to manage the cost of public transport. And again, assist people so that as they move about, it is not too difficult for them to get from point A to point B. So this is something that we have done. And I'm saying this never existed before. There were the concerns and threat for increasing bus prices when we came in. And this is something that we directly did to be able to stabilize it so that we could have greater predictability in the economy as it relates to that. And then finally, I just want to say that on the area of housing, Terry, I don't know details about all of the other constituencies, but in St. George Northeast, for example, we have over 800 and something plus requests for housing assistance, right? Now, for a constituency, that is not a simple task. And what I am saying is that throughout all of the constituencies in Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, homes are being rebuilt. And take that into the context of Hurricane Beryl just passing and we have to assist Carriacou Pitimati directly to rebuild housing. And we are still ongoing in terms of rebuilding houses throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. The government is doing a lot. And therefore, what is required now is for our party soldiers to see the task at hand. They want to take away the opportunity for the National Democratic Congress to receive a second term. Historically, we have not done so. And so at this juncture, 2 years to go until our general election, what they are going about is using the same old playbook about rescue mission. But we know what would become of that rescue mission. And so I want to say to all the stalwarts, all the soldiers, all those who are on the fence and believe that they want to join something substantive and meaningful, you have seen the performance of the government over the last 3 years. And therefore, we are not up for games. When it came to making the decision on the increase in minimum wage, for example, you heard the Prime Minister himself speaking about it. It was the entire cabinet that made this decision. All of us believe in people's development and giving people more. So this perception that we are going around raising salaries and people can't even afford to pay bus, and so I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so we have to get serious, Terry, at this juncture, because throughout the world we notice that there is this pattern where propaganda, and particularly I want to target now AI, is being used to mislead people and in some instances create false narratives that does not exist and try to put information out there about, you know, organizations, institutions, which is a dangerous thing. So we have to be on our P's and Q's. We have to remember the task at hand. And as Prime Minister said in our Busheju mass rally, we have to be our neighbor's friend and keeper. If you know of a National Democratic Congress supporter who is in desperate need of some form of assistance, don't say that you're not the PD captain, so therefore you're not passing any information on. Take the information if you know of it and try and get it to the Member of Parliament, get it to the General Secretary, get it to the PRO, get it to anyone who you believe would be able to resolve it. And it is a lot in some instances. We need to understand as well that coming in just 3 years, there is no way humanly possible that we'll be able to solve all the problems that existed in Grenada, i.e. some of our supporters who may have had difficulties. And therefore, what is required is a professional conversation, those who may feel disgruntled over the situation. You have that right. If you're a party member and you feel that you have been slighted by an MP, a party member, openly request to discuss. This is something that we are very keen on, and we handle things very maturely. We're not running a selfish shop. So when some people try to promote the adversarial tone in dealing with instances, there's a reason why the National Democratic Congress historically has not been making consecutive second terms. And therefore, what we need to focus on is why, and answer that certainly in our actions. We are confident, Terry, as well, as we move towards the next 2 years, that we are going to be able to make the case to Grenadians, not only home here, but the world over, as to why we need to move in a particular direction, and as to why the National Democratic Congress is the best choice going forward. This is not just about petty partisan arguments about who will have enough time on a bill and so on. When it came to the issue of gun violence, yes, the National Democratic Congress was 3 years or 2.5 years old, but we believe that we were there long enough to see that this issue of gun violence is at the heart of our tourism product, is at the heart of Grenadian, what makes us Grenadian, peaceful nation. And therefore, something had to be done about it at the legislative side. And so we have done so. We've demonstrated that. I can't say much for the opposition, because when it came to it, a lot of them was hiding and who didn't want to think and abstain and so on. And it's always this weak vacillation that, you know, Honorable Prime Minister spoke about in that 3-year ad. So you now have decisive leadership at the helm. And what we need to do is to continue to support it, critique that leadership when it is necessary. I'm not talking about the baseless arguments and personal attacks and so on. I'm not talking about that. But critique it when you believe more could be done. So there are people who might be genuinely concerned about the bill, but ask questions. Don't join this bandwagon with all this hate and spite. I mean, when you listen to this thing, you're angry at us and you helped draft this bill. I'm saying that if if you have concerns that we will thief Bonnet Bridge, you should have concerns that we thief in this legislation that you helped to draft too. You can't run from one and then pushing the other one, and I mean, and saying it's yours.
This is the issue.
Yeah.
The issue here is the foundation of that bill emanated from the other side.
Yeah.
Evidence must now be presented to the nation. Here are the facts.
Yeah. Right. So
we are just continuing and trying to fine-tune and make the best out of this bill in ensuring that young persons get the benefit that they deserve.
Correct.
The population of this country, regrettably and unfortunately, when you assess the situation with limited male figures in homes, it leads to tremendous stress in the family, in the circle there. Women are the majority of home representation.
Correct.
And the abuse sometimes young children face. Only just recently, someone was bringing to my attention that a young boy, 14-year-old, his mother was beating him with a cutlass. And saying to him all sorts of derogatory stuff. Don't come back here, and all kind of stuff like that. The ministry had to step in order to control it.
And that is the point about it. There are moments when that intervention is required.
There must be some opportunity for the state to intervene to correct these maladies that are taking place,
especially as it relates to sexual crimes against
women. Well, that's another issue all by itself.
So when you look at Grenada's
if the parents are not taking charge of this and protecting the child, then the state must intervene in order to provide protection.
That is the point. So it's a deep conversation, Terry, and it goes back to the point again about looking at this not in the angle of this personal attack on people and trying to accuse about some world order and all this, useless conversation. We have a problem in Grenada where a large number of our cases are sexually related.
Yep.
It is said so. This is not the National
statistics
Democratic, that's the point. This is not the National Democratic Congress making this up. We came into office with it being high, and it is still high. We want to do something about it. So we have looked at all the legislations, particularly under the Ministry of Social Development, that could be able to do such. And therefore, what we are saying is, as it relates to this bill in particular, this has no sinister intent. It is a cause for concern that the majority of Grenadians must look at. Whether you agree that the bill in its present form is appropriate, that's another conversation because it could be amended. So let's work towards amending it. But to give this false narrative and impression that there is some sinister objective is something that we must deal with squarely and dispel completely.
Well, listening to the narrative from the opposition, it states very clearly, the state want to take over your child.
Yeah.
You have no more control. The state would now say to the child what she can do, what she cannot do, and all that, and give the child all the powers. Now, come on, get real. Get real. The sad thing about it is that this kind of narrative has its dangerous consequences in the minds of individuals who are not thinking for themselves.
And that's a concern.
So therefore, the corrective agenda and narrative needs to be shared.
That's a concern. And, look, we are not saying to Grenadians that we want to be dogmatic and say to them who they need to listen to. Everybody has a right to listen to whatever side of the fence that they want. But what we would encourage at the level of the National Democratic Congress is to listen less to the nonsense. And let's try and focus on the areas that is going to bring people together to have meaningful discussions and bring solutions not just for the government, i.e. the 15 legislators and ministries, etc., but the vast majority of Grenadians who require action and political decision on things. Look at, for example, the oath of allegiance. Now, repeatedly, there are people who are going about and saying that, again, there is some sinister intent with this. This is simply to allow the people who need to swear office to swear that office to Grenada. It is not an attempt to try to get rid of this and get rid of that and promote this kind of them versus us scenario. There is no sinister intent in that, and it is clearly stated. Now, if you ask me about the procedure or the process, let's discuss the process honestly. Do not go down the road of trying to attack people and saying about we this and we that. Because I'll tell you this. My good friend, Brother Rolo, unfortunately, I have to keep speaking about this because I remember in my younger days when I used to serve in the Senate, he was against the Constitution in its broad sense. Entirely. And he repeatedly said that the Constitution was null and void because it was never brought into force into the Parliament. Right. So today to make the argument to say that the Constitution is the supreme law and therefore it requires this two-thirds majority from the referendum, etc., is kind of not giving me confidence in what you are saying, because on one hand,
yesterday it was null and void,
right? And now it is
today,
void, and
it has
requires
powers.
The referendum. So we have to be honest, and this is the point I'm making. We have to directly deal with scenarios as they are presented. I can't state for previous administrations, but I can state for this administration. So far, I think we have demonstrated that we are genuine to when people raise, dissatisfaction on certain things. We are not dogmatic. Even people who spread lies on individuals within the government, we are not hungry to go out there and suing people all over the place. That's not what we believe in. And when we say sue, it's not
talking financial.
We are talking financial susu, to build the little one cocoa, to build that basket. That's what we refer to. So in principle, and today is a more casual program, so we're just discussing issues. In principle, the NDC is not about all the noise. What we're trying to say to people is, if you have genuine concerns, come let us discuss. Come let us have a dialogue. Let us have a discussion on how we solve the problem rather than engage in a political.
All right. Let us look at this scenario. Mm-hmm. God forbid. Right. Let's imagine a young girl, maybe 14, 15, mm-hmm. gets sexually abused by a male figure in a home. Mm-hmm. And she is scared of even going to the mother. Right. Because she knows in her mind mm-hmm. that the mother is not going to give support. Mm-hmm. Where does this young child go?
That's the point.
Who does she go to?
That's the point. Right. And so
does she remain there and just continue with the abuse day in, day out, day in, day out?
That's the point.
Who protects her?
That's the point.
So, and this is what people need to understand and mm-hmm. appreciate. Mm-hmm. Children do need protection at some point in time. Right. This is the kind of world that we are now living in.
Correct.
And if the state does not step up to that protection, then you have to answer to God.
Well, correct. And so Terry, again, and go back to the whole point, this is not across the board, but it is to say that in homes where this, for example, may be going on, some form of protection is required.
Of course.
And, when it comes to the sexual connotation of this whole question of the abuse and so on, something about it, people always tend to have this kind of apprehension. And probably it stems from a historical issue. I know when some of us was growing up, the grandparents would say, if you touch a boy hand, etc., you'll get pregnant. But it is that kind of backward thinking, unfortunately, that has led us to have infantile understanding of the whole question of this business of sex in general in society.
Procreation in general.
Right. Yeah. So I am saying that as a society, what we need more of is the education and understanding. How do we combat these issues? While we need legislations, I could tell you, we actually need more technical programs at a community level to be able to empower families, i.e. young mothers, who may be leaving their minors vulnerable to the hands of abusers. Yeah. And I'm saying this is the conversation that we need to have. So, when we talk about it at the highest, some of the highest office in the country, in the land, and to pretend that everything has to be just a petty partisan argument is a failed society. No wonder why we were not making the advances in the past that we needed so desperately. So, in the words of the former Prime Minister, that is not a NNP concern, it's not an NDC concern, it is Grenada's concern.
Well, that's absolutely correct.
And so that is where we need to take this conversation, probably even bring this to the diaspora. Let the vast majority of Grenadians living outside there, more than 400,000 of them, give a contribution in terms of EC and hear what they have to say as well on this whole matter. Not just take a very minuscule approach to saying, well, two people throw some wire lash and they make some noise, so we have to leave it alone. That will not help develop our country. And so we're much more than that, and that's what we are trying to advocate. But the Ministry of Social Development is currently engaged in a series of activities, discussions, so to speak, that is going to help bring some enlightenment to it. I know the minister is keen on that. Probably when she gets a chance, she would be able to give us a comment or two on it. That's Senator Gloria Thomas. And she could be able to dispel these things very easily. There is no sinister attempt. Probably what we need to discuss is how do we amend the law to reflect the wishes and aspirations of the vast majority.
Exactly. And every submission is never perfect.
No, at all.
There can always be an opportunity for negotiations here and there. And this is the responsibility of a responsible opposition.
Agreed.
To represent the rest of the population.
Agreed.
And say, we observe this. We'd like to see amendments here and there. Okay, would the amendments benefit the nation?
Correct.
Because that's the bottom line to it.
Yeah.
Will it benefit the nation?
That's what we need to look at.
You want amendments? Is it in your personal interest? Whose interest is it?
That's the point.
It has to be in the interest of the nation.
That's the point.
So,
so it's like that. And just lastly on it, the prorogation of Parliament effectively killed the bill. And therefore, all this talk about kill the bill and so on is just being politically motivated and will amount to nothing. They are not going to achieve anything because this administration took the decisive decision to prorogue Parliament, and the bill effectively died because it was only for its first reading. So there is no sinister attempt again on our part. If there is need to have an open, genuine conversation about this matter, the government, the Ministry of Social Development, as I said, has started that campaign and is ready, willing to hear and also provide feedback on where there may be confusion in the minds of any mother, father, or family or guardian in that regard.
well, I'm glad to hear that the ministry is going to have such consultations and so forth, because it's necessary, because propaganda can have its destructive force.
True.
And that needs to be taken into serious consideration. But having said that, more information, of course, needs to be shared to the general public with respect to the progress made by this administration in a short 3-year span.
That's correct.
A lot has been done. I mean, you haven't touched yet on the removal of taxes on gasoline.
Right.
That is a major financial relief for everybody.
And what is important, Terry, while we have done this, remember, this administration has already given property tax waivers 1 year, right? The amount of revenue that we have been able to forego and still remain on track with every budget is phenomenal, including the year of Hurricane Beryl, 2024. There was not a significant drop in the revenue being collected. And so this is testament to the Ministry of Finance's ability to stay the course and remain focused. I want to take the opportunity to commend the permanent secretaries there, the different auxiliary staff there who every single day have to be able to collect the government's revenue, to be able to meet the targets and account to the nation as to how the spending was done. And so even us as members of parliament with the $10,000 monthly allowance, you learn the need to be responsible and accountable. I give you a joke. Sometimes people come from all over the country to the Northeast for assistance, and the little $10,000 is never enough, right? This issue of rent, for example. I think that we need to have an open discussion on rent charges, particularly for residential purposes. I'm not so much speaking about commercial spaces, but for residential purposes. And let us have the conversation as to how both the landlord and the tenant can work in an environment that protects their deposit, for example, and gives them a certain level of standard that they would be paying for at a certain price, and also protects the landlord's own investment into their property to make it into a living space for the tenant. And I'll tell you why I say so. When we speak about housing assistance or housing support, the reality is the vast majority of Grenadians may not be able to own a piece of land, much less a house. And therefore, some people actually grow by renting from different apartments. And so if that rent price is becoming exorbitant and out of hand, every year it is going up, unknown to the tenant, and in some instances, in a high-handed manner, it becomes a difficulty for them to live. This is helping to create social problems. This is helping to create problems for single mothers. It is helping to create problems for a lot of families all over the country, because the cost of living is not only external, but is also now becoming an internal concern, where they themselves, little 500, notwithstanding we've increased the minimum wage, little $500 they might be getting extra, that is being eaten up by the increase in their rental fees. So this is something that we must look at. If we believe housing or living accommodation is a right, we have to look at how we collectively, both from landlord and tenant standpoint, agree on what the base costs for rent throughout certain parishes should be. And we have to be honest about this, because I think in some instances, people are paying rental prices for apartments that should have swimming pools, etc., and doesn't have it, right? Furnished versus fully furnished and so on. We need to have that conversation. I think it is something that every single day I go into my constituency and there is a request, it's now becoming some assistance for a little rent, etc. The family just can't make it. And then the time it will take to build a house, 3 months pass, that's 3 months rent again that you already can't afford, and the bills continue to pile up. And I'm certain landlords are getting frustrated with people coming to rent and not being able to service the rent. And so when something is becoming a burden like that, in my humble belief, it is the requirement of the state to step in to give some kind of regulation guidance so that it is a bit more accessible to Grenadians, and also affordable to the landlord who is making the investment in the first instance. So I think that a collaboration could be had. I know we're having rounds of consultations for the upcoming budget. Maybe it is something that we can see, if the time permits, to have the discussion on. But I think from a residential standpoint with rent, something has to be done to be able to control the price and set it at particular methods, even if the landlord has to get some benefit at the back end, but that the price is stabilized so that families who can't afford or own a land or a property can have some measure of comfort as they continue to go.
Well, many years ago, I think it was under PRG, you had what was then called the Rent Restriction Act.
Right.
I don't know if it's still on the books or what, but the Rent Restriction Act was a very important piece of legislation that kind of helped to address the issues that you're referring to. But it requires tremendous negotiations and consultations and so forth, because someone investing his money is expecting a return, etc., etc.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, and then you look at the legal side of it, our court system, it is to the point that it is very, very frustrating. And I would really like to see night courts in Grenada to deal with a lot of petty issues. Imagine you rented your place to someone, stop paying rent for a long period of time.
Right.
He contracts an attorney, and the attorney is giving dance around in the court. He's not well, can't show up. Or you have a very important meeting to attend, and every time you get it put off by the magistrate. That is frustrating, and that is unacceptable. Justice delayed, in my opinion, is justice denied.
I agree with you.
And therefore, with the backlog of cases in the court, we need to institutionalize night court to deal with a lot, and a lot of it is just petty issues. But they're not being heard.
Right, they're
So
becoming
then
plentiful.
it's adding up.
Yeah.
So then again, you can't accomplish everything in one term.
That's correct. So maybe our Attorney General
Yes.
would be able to follow us next week, where she could discuss some of the updates that we have there. And in
Indeed.
particular, I know she is very excited about the Halls of Justice project. You know, she has mentioned this for the last 3 years or so in terms of ensuring that all of the work necessary to be done is being done behind the scenes, and then it comes down to the question of funding. So she has been working expeditiously to see how she could achieve this, and I am confident that if given the opportunity, she will be able to speak to it once she's ready. So probably sometime next week we can you know, speak to her on that matter.
Well, I look forward to that. Well, time is quickly catching up on us.
Yes.
And I want us to just take a short break and for you to listen to, and for the listening audience, to listen to this clip, which when you have a top-rated actor in the name of Denzel Washington mentioning Grenada's name, it tells you something right is happening in Grenada.
That's true.
So we'll share that clip and we come back thereafter.
You.
Where are you?
This is Natasha, and I'm in Grenada.
Oh, wow.
If I was not in Grenada on a press trip, I would be there in person. But thank you so much for taking time to talk with the Koreans.
We should be in Grenada. We should be in Grenada. We're on our way.
Would be happy to have you. So first, I just want to thank you for this film. It is so layered. So, Mr. Washington, I want to start with your character, David King.
Wake up, y'all, the king's here.
Got to pay back.
Buying back, stacking his records.
It's a lot of money.
There's more to life than just making money.
There are conversations you have with A$AP Rocky's character that feel like a metaphor for conversations that should happen in the Black community between generations. You talk about integrity.
I gotta feed the streets, my lady, and a newborn kid. And I ain't trying to go back and do another bid, you dig?
I know what it is to risk everything you have for something that you want. I know what that means, to have nothing and want everything.
Exploitation in the music industry. And I wonder, do you think this movie could spark larger conversations about how Black people and Black men in particular are portrayed and valued in the music industry?
That's a lot for a movie to ask, and I don't know if it's just Black. If that's, you know, if it stops with Black men or if it stops with men. What does this quote says? All money ain't good money. You know, what level are you willing to sink to, you know, for profit, for influence?
Speaks to our values.
Values.
What do we value anymore?
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, as Denzel said, yes, you know, that's true. I think it's expressed through, you know, culturally, but it's, you know, that's America right now. What are our values? You know, are our values the things that we understood to be nurturing of, you know, our best selves, or are we just transactional? Is it all, you know,
I mean, look
materialistic?
Look at your industry, you know, or your journalism. It does it have to be true, or does it have to be first?
Right. And there are even moments in the film where you see the influence of social media and the way that they portray a story versus the reality of the story. It was so authentic, and really grateful for this story. I think a lot will be unpacked from it. So thank you so much.
That's great.
I take all the credit. I wrote it. I produced it. I directed it.
It was very touching to hear Denzel Washington, you know, say, oh, he's ready to go to Grenada.
Yeah.
You know, Grenada is on the world map. Trust me.
We look forward to expecting him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So indeed, this will be a big, big thing for Grenada, for Denzel Washington to pay us a visit.
Yes, ma'am.
Then, you know, as we come to the close of this episode for today, just give us an update. I know Minister Andy Williams and Tevin Andrew, they were over in Jamaica to observe the elections over there and so forth. How did that go?
Well, it went well. I wouldn't tell you what they were eating and how much they've been eating, but I know, you know, it was a wonderful experience for both members of parliament and members of the National Democratic Congress to observe firsthand the election fever, I would say, over in Jamaica. At this moment, we would like to certainly officially congratulate. The Prime Minister has done so already. The Prime Minister-elect, both in Guyana and Jamaica, President Irfan Ali, was re-elected in Guyana's election on the 1st of September, and on the 3rd of September, Honorable Andrew Holness was re-elected successfully. The PNP was unsuccessful, but I think there are some very important lessons that anyone can learn from the experience up there, and their trip was to lend support, as the PNP has done in the past, to the National Democratic Congress, and to always keep that camaraderie alive. One of the things in politics I think we need to change is this measure of ungratefulness that sometimes seeps in. And in a sense, if someone helped you, there's always this perception of a quid pro quo. But sometimes just showing up and being there for them, casually, quietly, asking how things are without the pressure goes a long way. And it was a demonstration of the National Democratic Congress of its friendship to the PNP, which they did for us in the height of our, I would say, darker days and moments. They were there, and we could not be there for them. And so we look forward to that. I think throughout the Caribbean, there are a number of general elections that would be due. The next one I think we would be able to turn our attention to is St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we look forward with excitement to see what our sisters and brothers there would be doing. Again, we are all for the Caribbean unity. And so when the Honorable Prime Minister visits the African continent, etc., it is to remind us where we came from and to bring back that spirit of where we came from to where we are now in the Caribbean region, and see how we could bridge the gaps and build more unity among our people. So it was a wonderful experience. I know General Secretary Honorable Andy Williams would be providing us with an update sometime soon, if not next week, but the following one. And we look forward to his update. Honorable Tevin Andrews should be back up in Carriacou by now. So it speaks to our own ability to reach out, be there for our sister parties, and we are just excited to witness firsthand the experience over there.
Great. When last were you up in Carriacou?
I've not been in a long time. I think I'm trying to save it to ensure that when I see it, I have the wow factor from what it was with Beryl. But we intend to travel to Carriacou and host a town hall meeting. That is the government is going to have a major town hall meeting in Carriacou, Petit Martinique, to give an update, provide an update to the residents up there and to the nation as to the progress we have made with rebuilding Carriacou, in particular night landing. Now, I want to just quickly make this point that the person who is leading the efforts for the night landing, unfortunately, his son took his life through acts of bullying. And I want to posit this concern here, that I think this is a major concern. I wouldn't call the school and all these other things. This is a major concern that we need to address in our society. This need for people to give people will talk and so on, without facts, is a dangerous thing. Just listening to the message that Denzel Washington and the other podcaster was making, do you want to be first with some kind of story, or do you want to be truthful? Right? So each of us would have a responsibility to ensure that when we address people, unless it's just the usual old talk, because I grew up with a lot of old talk in school. I mean, my background, I like old talk. Anybody who know me, I like to give talk and I can take talk.
So you those... like a Kalalupi?
In the rain. Yes, so, you have that concern, but it's cause for concern. I am hopeful that an investigation could be had so that the parents of the young man could be given some measure of
now, without tripping you, this is in fact an item that should be in that bill.
No, it speaks to it. It speaks to it.
Must speak to it.
So this is why we need to, and again, the right for that investigation to be had, for example, is something that should be open.
Yep.
And, don't have to wait until the parents or family members demand it. So it's all about that measure of professionalism and upgrade that society requires to be able to get us to the level and standard that where we need to be. A lot of issues happen, and it's either ignored or swept under the carpet. Sometimes in society, you need to have these things open up and be given the necessary institutional framework to resolve them.
Fantastic. Well, time has certainly caught up with us, so we invite you to give your rounding up.
Yes.
I know, of course, budget. How is the budget consultations going?
They've been going well. I would say, honestly, on my assessment, although I didn't attend the one in St. George, I couldn't because I had class. But I would say that we need more people to be there. Don't just look at it online. Be there to ask your questions and to provide maybe some kind of input that could be able to create a policy that could be able to serve, your concern or the broader concern of your community. And I would say it's going well. We look forward to all the findings to be discussed and finally decisions to be made on budget 2025.
Fantastic.
26, sorry.
Great. Well, again, we've come to another end of another Heartbeat episode.
Yes.
So,
well, I would just say to our listeners and viewers,
goodbyes.
Terry, that continue to remain focused, get registered, do what you must. The code is, and I wouldn't say it, I think they're going to say it on the on the comment section on Facebook, but the code is yellow. And, remain focused, remain steadfast. We are for Grenada, and we would await the time when we would ask the question for Grenada to be for us. So we are confident of that. We're doing what it takes to build our country, and we look forward to the continued support.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for being part of the Heartbeat today, and thank all our listeners and viewers of this Sunday's episode. And join us again next Sunday when we'd have equally interesting and stimulating conversation to share with you. So join us again next Sunday. We'll be right here with the rest of the team, Blondell, Kino, etc., making it happen. So see you again next Sunday. Goodbye.